It's not the past that haunts you. It's your refusal to face what still lives inside you. Because the past isn't gone, it echoes. It lingers in your breath, your reactions, your silences. It speaks every time you flinch at a kind word, every time you sabotage a good thing, every time you convince yourself that you've moved on while dragging invisible chains behind you. You say you can't let go, but the truth is, you never held it long enough to feel it. You didn't heal it. You hurried it. You didn't process it. You buried it. And buried things don't die. They grow. They grow into patterns, into defenses, into a version of you that is always performing safety, never living it. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So, you call it bad luck. You call it just how I am. You call it a pattern in the people you meet. But your past isn't fate, it's a script you haven't stopped reading from. You haven't let go of the past because the version of you who lived it has never been met, never been held, never been heard. You see, trauma doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers subtly in the choices you make, in the love you tolerate, in the joy you deny yourself, in the way you reach for success to prove your worth, or the way you hide behind apathy so no one can see your longing. You can't let go of your past because you still believe it defines you. You still think the pain was your fault. You still think the silence was safety. You still believe the story, that you are only as worthy as your ability to be useful or silent or agreeable. You still think survival is the same thing as peace. But it's not. Peace doesn't come from pretending you're over it. Peace comes from turning toward the wound and choosing to stay long enough to witness it, to understand it, to no longer be afraid of it. Because your fear of the past is not about memory. It's about what that memory might do to the life you built on top of avoidance. You're afraid that if you go back, everything will collapse. But listen, it's already collapsing. Every time you choose numbness over feeling, every time you stay quiet to keep the peace, every time you distract yourself with a new goal, a new face, a new version of better, the collapse is slow, internal, silent, but it's there, and it's sacred, because what collapses when you confront the past was never built to hold the truth. So, let it collapse. Let the old beliefs crumble. Let the masks fall. Let the identities you adopted to survive burn away so something real can emerge. You can't let go of your past because you're still trying to protect the self you had to become inside it. The one who didn't have a choice. The one who made themselves small to stay safe. The one who hardened to stop the bleeding. You think letting go means betrayal, but it doesn't. Letting go is not the abandonment of your past. It is the integration of it. It is the act of saying, I see you. I see who I had to become, and I honor you, but I no longer need to be you. Because healing isn't becoming someone new. It's remembering who you were before the world taught you who to be. It's not about forgetting. It's about facing the memory without flinching. Looking at the wound and no longer needing to turn away. And that requires a kind of courage this world doesn't teach. A kind of silence that isn't empty, it's holy. A kind of stillness that doesn't numb it, reveals. It shows you what you've carried all these years and how little of it ever belonged to you. You've been carrying shame that wasn't yours, expectations that were never sacred, stories that were written by others but tattooed onto your soul like truth. You don't let go of the past by force. You let go by witnessing it, by honoring what it taught you, and then choosing differently. Because the past is a teacher, not a prison. And you're not stuck. You're just afraid that if you stop clinging to who you were, you won't recognize who you are. But let me tell you something. the self that emerges after you faced your past. She is holy. He is sovereign. They are untouchable, not because they've never been hurt, but because they're no longer ruled by the hurt. That's who you are becoming. Not someone without scars, but someone who has learned how to live beyond them. Not someone who forgets, but someone who remembers without being controlled. This is why you couldn't let go before, because no one told you that letting go wasn't a moment. It's a metamorphosis, a return, a reclamation, and it begins the moment you stop running from what hurt and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. The past isn't here to punish you. It's here to remind you of your unfinished conversation with yourself, the tears you swallowed, the words you never said, the boundaries you never drew, the rage you never let burn clean. These are not weights meant to bury you. They are messages, signals from your soul, asking you to stop pretending, asking you to feel what you've numbed, to say what you were taught to silence, to become the version of yourself that your younger self needed, not the one they were forced to perform. You were not born broken. You were taught to doubt your wholeness by parents who couldn't love their own shadows, by a culture that profits off your insecurity, by a system that conditions your value into productivity. So you learn to trade your truth for safety. But safety at the cost of self is not safety. It is slow suicide. And every time you revisit your past through the lens of shame, every time you say, I should have known better, or I can't believe I let that happen, you betray the part of you that survived, the only way it knew how. Let go of the shame. That wasn't weakness, that was wisdom. You did what you had to do to live through it. Now, you do what you must to rise through it. And rising doesn't mean escaping. It means integrating, welcoming every part of you home, not just the polished pieces, the rage, the softness, the grief, the hunger, the brilliance, all of it. You are not fragmented. You are just afraid of your fullness, because fullness threatens everything built on partiality. But you don't need to fit into the old spaces anymore. You are too big for that now, too honest, too whole. And yes, letting go will cost you. It will cost the comfort of your victimhood, the identity you built around pain, the stories you've told yourself that allowed you to remain safe in your stuckness. But what you gain is everything. Freedom, real joy, the kind that isn't performative. Self-respect, the kind that doesn't require applause. Love, the kind that begins within and radiates outward. And perhaps most importantly, forgiveness. Not from them, from you, because you've carried guilt for too long. Guilt for surviving. Guilt for not healing fast enough. Guilt for being human in a world that demands perfection. But healing has no timeline. Forgiveness isn't a reward, it's a return. A coming home to the truth that you were always worthy, even when you couldn't see it. So here's the truth. You can't let go of the past until you've honored it, until you've thanked it for its pain, until you've stopped blaming it and started listening to it. Not for answers, for understanding, because understanding gives you back your power. And power, when reclaimed from the ruins of your past, becomes unshakable. That's the path. Not a straight line, not a quick fix, a spiral. One breath, one choice, one truth at a time. You will return again and again to the place that hurt. And each time it will hurt less. Each time you will remember more. Each time you will come back stronger. Until one day you stand in the center of the storm that used to destroy you, and you don't flinch because it no longer owns you. You've turned the wound into wisdom, the fear into fuel, the story into strength. And you realize it was never about letting go. It was about finally letting yourself become the version of you that the wound tried to bury. Become the version of you that stopped asking for permission to exist. Become the version of you that walks through fire barefoot, not because it doesn't burn, but because you no longer run from your own heat. This is what it means to reclaim your past. You don't erase it. You redeem it. You rewrite the meaning, not the memory. You take the shame that kept you silent and turn it into sovereignty. You take the heartbreak that left you hollow and turn it into hunger for truth, for depth, for a life that does not betray you to please others. And when you do this, when you stop avoiding the mirror and start staring straight into your own reflection, you begin to see the real story. Not the story they told you, not the one trauma wrote in a panic. Your story, the one where the pain didn't end you. It awakened you, where the loss wasn't a punishment. It was an initiation, where the grief wasn't a cage. It was a door to a depth of presence you never knew you were capable of holding. That's the paradox. You can't let go of your past because you're still trying to hate it away. But it's not hatred that liberates you. It's reverence, not for the suffering, but for the strength that was forged inside it. Not for what happened, but for the fact that you're still here, breathing, becoming, burning maybe, but rising. Every scar you carry is not a sign of weakness. It's a record of your resurrection, a symbol that you died in pieces, in silence, in ways no one saw and came back different, clearer, sharper, more honest, less obedient. Because when you finally face your past, you don't just heal, you evolve. You grow edges where you were once porous. You grow roots where you once floated. You grow a voice that doesn't ask to be believed. It simply speaks, and the world either listens or leaves. And that is freedom. Freedom from the cycle. Freedom from the mask. Freedom from the tired performance of being fine. You are no longer here to be fine. You are here to be real. And reality is messy. It's loud. It's soft. It's grieving and laughing and loving with your whole chest. It's sitting with your younger self in a memory so painful it once made you numb, and this time choosing not to run, not to fix, just to be there, because that's all they ever needed. Not a savior, not a solution, just you, whole, present, willing. And now you can be. Now, the shame is fading, the weight is lifting. And what's left is the truth you've been too afraid to speak out loud. You've never been too broken to heal. You've never been too far gone to return. You've never been stuck, only sacred. And what is sacred must be faced, not fixed. Honored, not hidden. Loved, not left behind. You are not a product of your past. You are the alchemist of it. And the gold you're looking for? It's in the ashes, in the wreckage, in the part of the story you've avoided because that's where your power has been waiting all along. Now you know. Now you remember. Now finally you begin, and this beginning, it doesn't need fanfare. It doesn't need to be posted or proven or shared. It only needs to be lived quietly, deeply, consistently. Because real transformation doesn't shout, it shifts. It alters your posture when no one's looking. It changes your response when the old trigger returns. It softens your breath when the memory resurfaces, and this time you stay. You don't escape. You don't perform. You witness. And witnessing is sacred. It is a medicine your past never got. To be seen not as a victim, not as a problem, but as a process. Because you were never stagnant. Even in the numbness, you were moving. Even in the darkness, you were becoming. And now you are aware. You no longer confuse the past with identity. You no longer make homes out of moments that were meant to teach you, not define you. You no longer carry the grief like a sentence. You carry it like a sacred reminder of what you survived, of who you had to become to make it here, and who you no longer have to be. Because the armor that protected you then, it's now the weight that keeps you from flying. Let it go. Let it fall. Let it rust and rot and return to the earth with gratitude, not guilt. It served you, but it's not who you are. You are not the mask you wore to stay safe. You are not the silence you swallowed to stay loved. You are not the shadow they projected onto you. You are the one who endured, the one who remembered, the one who chose to meet the pain not with violence but with presence. That is power. That is healing, not fixing the past, but facing it. So face it. Hold its hand, not its throat. Walk with it, not away from it. Let it speak, then let it rest. Let it teach, then let it be still. Let it integrate into the masterpiece of your becoming, because what once held you hostage now becomes the foundation, not of who you were, but of who you're becoming. Not a survival story, but a sovereign one. Not a closed chapter, but a new language entirely. One written not in pain, but in power. Not in fear, but in truth. Not in trauma, but in transcendence. And now the past no longer leads. You do, fully, unapologetically, finally. And when you lead, not the fear, not the shame, not the unhealed echoes of who you used to be, the entire story shifts. You don't rewrite the past. You reclaim it. You walk back into those memories not to be undone by them, but to retrieve the parts of yourself you left behind, the softness, the voice, the fire. And piece by piece you bring them home. Not to the life you had, to the life you're creating. A life that no longer orbits your wounds. A life that doesn't revolve around avoidance, control, or chronic self-correction. A life that is built breath by breath from truth, not trauma. This is what it means to let go, not to forget, not to forgive before you're ready, but to say, I am no longer available to be defined by what happened to me. I choose what defines me now, not as an affirmation, as a declaration, as a way of living. And when you begin to live this way, something strange and beautiful happens. The past loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because you've stopped feeding it. You've stopped watering the narrative that says you're too damaged, too late, too lost. You've stopped making homes out of places you were meant to pass through. You've stopped asking the wound for permission to move forward. Now, you ask yourself, and the self that answers is whole. Not because nothing happened, but because everything happened and you're still here, still choosing, still waking up and showing up, still becoming, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts, because pain is no longer your prison, it's your portal, your signal, your invitation to get honest, get clear, and get free. You're not letting go by forgetting the past. You're letting go by honoring it, by owning every chapter, every scar, every silence, and then writing the rest of the story in a voice that finally sounds like you, unmasked, unbothered, unapologetically alive. This is what letting go really is. Not erasure, emergence, not starting over, starting true, not becoming someone new, becoming someone real. And now, as you stand on the edge of that threshold, you realize you were never holding on to the past. It was holding on to the version of you who didn't yet know their power. But now you know. And now you're ready to walk forward not as the survivor, as the sovereign, as the one who finally understood. The past is not where you live. It's what you rise from. And rising is no longer a future version of yourself you fantasize about. It's here, now, breathing through your ribs, burning behind your eyes, rumbling in your gut like thunder before the storm. Because this isn't the beginning of a new chapter. This is the beginning of a new language, a new frequency, a new law of being, where you are no longer held hostage by memory, where loyalty to your pain is replaced by allegiance to your truth, where every decision you make is no longer filtered through fear or the need to avoid what once broke you, where you no longer measure your value by how well you hide your scars, but by how deeply you've earned your freedom. You see it now. The past wasn't the enemy. It was the curriculum. It taught you what you were never meant to carry. It showed you every place you betrayed yourself just to survive. And now it offers you a gift, the mirror. The mirror says, will you keep rehearsing who you were, or will you rise as who you are? Will you keep asking life to make sense of your suffering, or will you make your suffering sacred by refusing to let it silence you one more day? Because pain is not meant to be avoided. It's meant to be alchemized, turned into art, into insight, into fierce, undeniable embodiment. Not a version of you that's never been hurt, a version of you that is no longer owned by that hurt. This is not about being healed. It's about being whole. And wholeness means there is no part of you, not the rage, not the grief, not the guilt, that is unwelcome at your table. You are done shaming yourself for how long it took. You are done asking people who broke you to validate your healing. You are done waiting for the world to approve your liberation. Because this is your life. And it begins now, in the quiet choice to stop lying to yourself, in the brave breath where you admit what still aches, in the trembling voice that says, even though I was not chosen, I still choose myself. And that choice, that single, quiet, defiant act of self-honor is how the future begins. Not the future they imagine for you. The future you build from the wreckage, from the ruins, from the raw. You're not letting go to forget. You're letting go because you're finally ready to remember who you are without the wound. And that person, they are here now, not waiting, not asking, just walking straight into their freedom, fully awake, fully whole, finally whole. So now it's time. Time to stop rehearsing your pain. Time to stop begging your past to love you back. Time to stop living like your wounds are your home. They are not. They were your passage. But this moment of remembrance, this breath of truth, this choice to be sovereign, this is your homecoming. You no longer owe your identity to the version of you that bled silently just to be enough. You no longer carry the burden of staying broken so others don't feel abandoned. You are not here to be imprisoned by what hurt you. You are here to rise from it louder, softer, sharper, truer, not perfect, not polished, but finally free. The past no longer owns you. It no longer defines you. It no longer speaks louder than your present. Because now your voice is clear. Now your spine remembers how to stand. Now your soul is no longer waiting for permission. You're not letting go to forget who you were. You're letting go to become who you truly are. And who you are is whole, is holy, is whole.